Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Future Forum. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. We are talking about an equal world. What is an equal world? How do we get to an equal world? What should we be doing to ensure that we achieve this concept called equality? With us this afternoon is a fantastic lineup of people who are in this field, in this area, experts and youth panelists to talk about what an equal world should look like and what we should be doing to get there. Our moderator this afternoon is Adiola Young. Now, Adiola is the founder and director of the grassroots social justice NGO Groundation, which supports the communities in Morville, Laventille, and Beetham Gardens. Now, Adiola has led many successful community projects and was a 2020 grant awardee from the US State Department to conduct organizing workshops for local youth activists. On this panel this afternoon, we have Ashley Burnett. Now, Ashley is querying and carrying the Caribbean forward. The Trinbagonian born writer and advocate is our 2020 Women's Deliver Young Leader and part of the Young Leaders Program. Now, Ashley is also the chair of the Caribbean Women in Leadership Trinidad and Tobago chapter. See, really excellent panel so far. Joining the panel is Mr. Bertrand Moses, who really knows what it means to be in the forefront in the fight for equality and child protection. He's the coordinator of the Child Affairs Division of the Office of the Prime Minister, Gender and Child Affairs. We also have with us Kevin Liverpool, who is the administrator of the Caribbean Male Action Network, or CARIMAN, and an Atlantic Fellow for Social and Economic Equity with the London School of Economics and Political Science. Kevin is also director of the Coalition Against Domestic Violence and supports gender equality projects across the Caribbean. These men and women are doing phenomenal work in Trinidad and Tobago and across the region to really bring us towards an equal world. As with all of our panels, we have two very special youth participants on today. We have Zachary and Janelle. Now, Zachary is 17 years old, and he wants to be a businessman because he wants to help develop Trinidad and Tobago and support his family. And Janelle is 14 years old, and she wants to be a medical doctor to really revolutionize Trinidad and Tobago's healthcare. So it is my absolute pleasure this afternoon to hand over this session to Adiola to lead this discussion on an equal world.
Hi, everyone. I am Adiola Young, and I will be moderating this session on equality and empowerment. So today's session, I'm really excited to have these wonderful panelists who have been in the field really putting things in place so that we can have an equal future. This session, I would like to start on my perspective on what an equal world should look like and what things should be happening for us to have an equal opportunity, equity, and understanding what social justice actually looks like. For us to have an equal world, I think there should be, close, honest dialogue with vulnerable communities. What theory and research grounds your practice is a question that should be at the forefront of all persons involved in social justice, all activists, policymakers, and developers. Understanding intersectionality as a concept is extremely important for our ever-changing world. We need to understand concepts such as gender, race, ethnicity, structural inequalities, age, disabilities, and other aspects of a society and its founding principles that can affect the equal opportunities that someone can access to. It is important for all youth activists and persons involved in this field to educate yourselves about the issues of social justice and remain grounded, having open dialogue with the vulnerable communities that you serve. Politically, equality is defined by a minority that may have an archaic view of what it means to have an equal world because many are not in communication or conversation with communities, and there are a lot of safe choices that are being made. Examples: ignoring the issues of LGBTQ plus issues, abortion, sex work, gender policy, indigenous rights, and so many safe choices that are being made without actually interrogating these issues. The prioritizing of issues should definitely be in the hands of the people, where in conversations you can see what is important to the people of Trinidad and Tobago and what steps can the policymakers actually take to empower them for us to have equitable policies, equal opportunities, and really impactful social support. So that is my take on what a future equitable society would look like. And we will go shortly to the youth participant videos by Zachary and Janelle.
Trinidad and Tobago, and by extension the world, is home to a variety of people, and equality means that each person is treated with respect.
That's true. There is a variation in race, religion, sexual orientation, and we have our own Venezuelan neighbors to add to our melting pot. Equality is also about ensuring that an individual has an equal opportunity to make the most of their lives and talents.
Discrimination based on any of these aspects should not be in our ideal future, neither in our present. We should be working together to create a society where persons can be free to share their thoughts and ideas in a respectful and understanding manner.
Exactly what I'm saying, but you're forgetting something. What about gender discrimination? As a society, Trinbagonians are not properly protected. Domestic violence is something so commonly experienced, but widely ignored. Should not be a part of our society. How many people do you know who are in these situations?
There is a 1 in 5 chance that you know someone who has experienced gender-based violence. This needs to change for society to progress.
The LGBTQ plus community also experiences discrimination everywhere they go. Their homes are not safe. They are discriminated against at work and their places of worship. They do not have a safe place. This needs to be corrected for future generations. They need to know that they are accepted.
What also needs to be addressed are stereotypes. People buy into all different stereotypes about a person's religion or race, and this contributes to discrimination. Like people who live in certain areas are considered ghetto, stuck up, or social classes we subscribe to.
We as young people must try our best to not be influenced by the negative things in our society. We need to reject ancient stereotypes of the generations before.
An equal Trinidad and Tobago says no to discrimination, no to gender-based violence, and no to stigmatization.
Wow, they could not have said it better. Right now, I'm really, really proud of those youth panelists who have really described what a future should look like with equality. I absolutely love that video. Now, let's get into our discussion for this evening, and I'd like to call forward our first speaker, which you have 5 minutes to discuss your ideas of what an equal society would look like. And I'd like to bring forward Mr. Kevin Liverpool, which is the regional administrator of the Caribbean Meal Action Network. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you, Adiola. And I'm so happy to be here. Welcome to all the viewers. Really glad that you tuned in. And thanks for the 5 minutes. I will make it tight. So as I'm starting, I want to ask, does anyone know who Lionel Messi is? And some persons may know, but for those who don't know, he is, one of the greatest football players that we have. There's a lot of debates about Lionel Messi, how good he is, how many goals he scores, and the difference he makes on and off the pitch. Really exciting person, Lionel Messi. Well, interesting fact, in 2017, Lionel Messi's annual salary, his salary for a year, was $84 million. And that's a ridiculous sum of money. I cannot even begin to imagine it. I mean, I know sometimes my bank account has $84, but $84 million for a football player for 1 year is insane. You would agree. Well, interestingly, persons wanted to know if there were any women football players who made that amount of money. And they couldn't find any. So they began to say, well, okay, let's combine salaries of the best women football players around the world and see how many women football players it would take to equal Lionel Messi's annual salary in 2017. So you could guess how many women football players do you think their annual salaries had to be combined to equal Lionel Messi's? You might say 10. No, it's not 10. 50? No, not 50. 100? Not even close. You may say, okay, well then 500, and still no. Actually, we combined the salaries, the annual salaries of 1,693 women footballers. And these are the best women footballers across the top 7 women football leagues in the world. And when we combined 1,693 annual salaries, we got 42.6 million, just half of Lionel Messi's. And this is what inequality looks like. And I will share a definition with you. Inequality means the unequal or unjust distribution of resources and opportunities among members of society. And this is a good example, right? In my work, I look at this inequality when it happens based on a person's gender or sex, and that's called gender inequality, right? What opportunities are you getting or being prevented from getting because of your gender or your sex, right? And that's really what my work is on. And where else does gender inequality exist? If on the football field in sports, but also it exists everywhere. It exists in the workplace, where women globally across the world earn approximately 77 cents for every $1 that a man makes. Or when we look in the government, only 25% of parliamentarians around the world are women. If we look in the home, what we see happening as well is that when we look at the time spent on domestic chores and taking care of children, on an average, countries across the world, women spend up about 4 hours on household tasks and taking care of children every day, while men spend 1 hour, about 1 hour every day. And this is even where women work. So we see that inequality happens outside of the home, at work, in parliament, on sports, but also it happens inside of the home. And why is understanding this inequality as it relates to gender important? Well, you see, it's important because gender inequality is at the root of gender-based violence. The reason why we see gender-based violence is because of this thing called gender inequality. So if we are to stop gender-based violence and stop the violence and aggression that women and girls experience, we must address gender inequality. I once told all of this to someone, and he said to me, well, Kevin, you have to understand this is how the world is. And what I want everyone listening, the one thing I want you to remember and to take away from today is that inequality is not inevitable. It may be how the world is, but it is not necessarily how we should keep the world. So quickly, how can you make a difference? The first is you can learn more about inequality. There are a lot of information online, there are books, there are people you could speak to about inequality. Also, you can join groups that are tackling social issues, that are addressing the problem of inequality. And finally, speak out when you see inequality around you. Report it to someone, write about it. But whatever you do, do not stay silent. Thank you. I want to pass it back over to Adiola now.
Oh, wonderful. I really loved your advice. Whatever you do, do not stay silent. And, that's why we see an influx of a lot of youth creating their own spaces, having these conversations, and starting their own organizations. And I'm really proud of that and our youth in Trinidad and Tobago. Speaking of the youth, we will move on swiftly to our next presenter, Mr. Bertrand Moses. This is the coordinator of the Child Affairs Unit of the Office of the Prime Minister.
Thank you kindly. A pleasure to be here once more. My young people, nothing gets me more excited than to talk to you. Good afternoon to my youth from the Heroes Foundation, our specially invited guests, our fellow presenters, and anyone else who's listening logged on right now. Today, I am honored to bring remarks on behalf of the Honorable Ayanna Webster Roy, Minister with the responsibility for gender and the child affairs, who regrettably was unable to be here. But I just want to get to the point. What does an equal world look like? Now, to really see the world during this pandemic, because I know you're at home thinking, I ain't getting to go nowhere, I ain't see the world, what is this world talk? I feel like the only way we could really see the world in terms of what it looks like in an equal way is through Netflix. What are they saying? Who here likes Netflix? If you like Netflix, just drop a flame in the chat or say, boom, I love Netflix. No. If we turn to Netflix and we turn on the TV, I did some research and I decided to discover what are the top 3 Netflix shows for young people in the world. So I found them. Number 1, one of them is called Atypical. Now, all these shows are PG-rated, so don't get any ideas, right? So the first one is Atypical, which follows the life of an 18-year-old Sam Gardner who has autism spectrum disorder. Check that out, worth a look. The second one, wow, Never Have I Ever. Not the game that you always be playing, but Never Have I Ever is a powerful Netflix series where after the death of her father and recovering from not being able to use her legs for 3 months, 15-year-old Indian American Devi wants a fresh start. And then the third one, which I know you've heard of, I know you know this show. So just tell me in the chat. I want you all to guess what you think this show is. But the third big blockbuster on Netflix amongst young people is Dear White People. You know, they say white people. Yeah? Dear White People is set against the backdrop of a predominantly white Ivy League university where racial tensions bubble below the surface. Now, these 3 shows are entertaining. They're comedic. They're thrillers. They make you cry. They make you laugh. You can watch your little girlfriend or boyfriend, but you're not supposed to have that, so I don't know what you're talking about. But these shows all touch on 3 critical issues that affect equality: race, disability, and class. When I was your age, though, there was a show I really liked. Let me tell you, my show when I was your age was a show called The Wire on HBO. Now, I don't know if Kevin, my boy, knows that show, or Ashley, but that show used to show on HBO. And at your age, I was blown by the fact that this was a community in Baltimore City where young people lacked opportunities because of where they were. Because they're from an inner city where there was crime and gunshots and bad man life, like Trinidad just tried to play now. Because they came on, I know this is Trinidad, you know, we need to stop it, all right? Yeah. But I know that when I looked at that show at that young age, I was blown by the fact that depending on where you were born, you wouldn't have access to a quality education. You would have access, you would have to be forced into selling drugs. And you'd also have to grow up in a community where gang and gun warfare was as normal as just waking up and seeing the sun or the beach in our islands. That bothered me as a child, and it stuck with me for years. But then something happened that just really puts this equity conversation in a different gear. So I was a part of a fellowship. I'm a part of a fellowship called the Atlantic Fellows for Health Equity. And I was in Washington, D.C., and they took us on tours to see different places where equity issues happen, you know, with guns, things with drugs, the homeless. And I sat there all day, listened to all the real talk. This is not no Nancy story. I sat listening to these people talk, some men who was gangsters, you understand? There was drug lords, there was killers, there's murderers, you know what I mean? And they were talking about how to change their life for good. It was like big man thing, a real changed my life. And I was sitting down listening to them. And as I was listening to them, I was like, nah, man. But something about these stories sounds so real to me. Like I've heard these stories before. And something told me it was Safe Streets. Something told me to Google it. And I Googled Safe Streets Project. And then it popped up, Baltimore. I was in the same state, in the same area in the US that had the highest rates of gun violence and murders per capita in the US, in Baltimore City. And these men were talking about what they wanted to do to change the world in that area. I was sitting exactly where The Wire was filmed. And these men said that we want to help change equity and equality issues to make the world better. How did they do this? Let's link The Wire and let's link Trinidad and Tobago. Equality. These are the 3 lessons I learned. 1, what does that equal world look like? It looks like a world where everyone looks out for each other. We have to look out for each other. In Baltimore, in the US, the Safe Streets Project managed to reduce shootings by 14% because ex-convicts volunteered their time to ensure that young people had opportunities. Let me tell you, they would walk up. If there was a gun warfare going on, they would walk up and speak to the man who was going to shoot somebody and say, bro, it's not worth it, I've been here, in his face. And they were able to reduce shootings by 14%. This tells me that when it comes to equality, meaning that children could have their parents alive still, that children wouldn't be exposed to drugs or gang warfare, when it comes to that, it means that all of us can play a part. How can we do that in Trinidad and Tobago? We can look at the National Child Policy developed by the government of Trinidad and Tobago, which is the first national child policy in the Eastern Caribbean. And it says, its vision is all children, and we have to uphold this vision as ambassadors for this, all children and youth are to be happy, healthy, and confident, and their rights are respected, protected, and promoted to facilitate their holistic development toward achieving their fullest, your fullest potential as constructive members of society now and in the future. 2, what should we be doing to get there? That's the next question. In Baltimore, there's another example. This is HBO series that became real to me. Living classrooms, the Baltimore City Mayor's Office, and the Neighborhood Safety and Engagement Organization, they and religious organizations and NGOs came together and said, we need a coalition to fight against the violence against women being raped, women being taken advantage of, children just losing opportunities for an education so they could have an equal place in this world. And so they worked together to create that. In Trinidad and Tobago, we have done work. A national policy on gender development has been created. We've signed multiple conventions with the UN. We have support from the UN Women and UNICEF for children. We have the Domestic Violence Act in 2020. We have domestic violence shelters. We have the 24/7 domestic violence hotline, 800-SAVE. We have we have She Trades Hub. We have the Barbershop Initiative. We have so many initiatives that we can be a part of. And all you have to do is Google online and find out how you could support or just know a number that you can call if violence is happening against a woman or a man and it's gender-based. 800-SAVE, remember that. And finally, as I end, 3, what should we consider when we're thinking about equity and equality? When we talk about an equal world, what should we consider? I want to leave 2 things with you. There are 2 ways that we could do this. Double S. Do not forget this. Double S. Not double M like Marshall. No, not double M, eh? Big up Marshall Montana, wherever he is now. You're not trying to grow a bear like his, you know what I mean? But we're talking about double S. Speak out and serve. Double S. Type it in the chat. Speak out and serve. So I know you're with me now. I don't want to be boring all day. Speak out and serve. Type that in the chat. Speak out when someone disabled is lacking services and serve them yourself. Speak out when someone becomes socially displaced or serve them food. Speak out when someone is affected by gender-based violence or serve by calling 800-SAVE. Speak out when someone who is LGBTQI is being bullied or serve them by being their friend. I want to leave this with you. What can you do to join this battle? Boom! The Office of the Prime Minister, Gender and Child Affairs would like to specially invite you. The first time we're making this public appeal in 2021 to join the Child Rights Ambassador Program. This program is huge because in 2020, these young people who came together were able to reach over 200,000 persons promoting child rights under the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. These young people are my militant army. That's why I have on black today, because I'm representing them. They came together to be militant, to create equality, a world that is better. And I want to specially invite you to apply to be a part of this. How? Join. Go online on Facebook or Instagram and look for Child Rights AMB, A-M-B, and follow and look out for when we announce applicants in September. And I want to say this. The thing that I like about you all, my heroes youth, I always love the Heroes Foundation. And the thing I want to say to you is that you can create change. You can create that ripple effect. Why? Because two of our ambassadors I will share went on to do great things. One, that's right, somebody said speak and serve. Big up Bettina Harper. I like it. And I seen earlier too. I love it. Type it in the chat box. There's another thing I want to say. How can I say that this really makes a difference? One, Priyanka Lala. At 14 years old, 13 years old, she became a child rights ambassador. She did work in Trinidad and Tobago for climate change and for child abuse. Boom! UNICEF Global spotted her and said, you know what? We want to make her the first UNICEF youth advocate from the Eastern Caribbean. That is changed. Now she speaks. She was featured in the Financial Times, which has a readership of 28 million people, which is the #1 financial newspaper in the world, talking about how low-lying Caribbean territories are affected by climate change. That's how you can create equality. Who else? Renaya Swan, a terrorist ambassador from this year, who was passionate about creating videos to make change. And boom, the Organization of American States picked her up and said, you know what? We want you to speak to, now get this, 30 ambassadors from around the world about violence against children. Gone are the days when we say our voices don't matter. Our voices can ripple effect in Trinidad and Tobago, and it can also ripple effect in the world. And so my invite to you is, how can you speak up? Join in the battle, become a Charis ambassador, be a Heroes ambassador, and make a big difference and make a change. This is how your generation will shift us old people off our rockers and create equality. I thank you, and I trust that you will have a pleasant day exploring how you can create equality.
Yes, that was really an interesting and exciting presentation. Speak out and serve. And I'd like to invite you all to go to the Ministry of Gender and Child Affairs, Office of the Prime Minister, and there are a lot of things on the website. There is a mental health workbook. This was coordinated by Bertrand himself for children in the time of the pandemic. So there's a mental health workbook where you can download, and there are activities that could assist you with mental health for children. And there's also the child abuse awareness course on the website. So you will be learning about the issue of child abuse and also how to combat. So speak out and serve. So I would like to invite Miss Ashley Burnett, a close friend of mine as well, and another youth leader that is truly inspiring in the field of gender. Ashley, yeah, take it away. I know, how can you go after such engagement?
How do I, right? I'll try my best.
Yes, I'll take it away, Ashley.
Thank you so much to the Heroes Foundation and the IDB for this amazing opportunity. We are all different. Just look at yourselves and the person next to you if there's someone that you can actually look at. Although we are all human beings, the differences make us unique, deserving of each human right afforded to us just by virtue of being human. When we look around the world, and even right here in Trinidad and Tobago, we see crimes against humanity. People who are discriminated against because they look, act, and express themselves differently to others. We see a school system not designed in a way that embraces difference in learning, difference in aspirations, difference in choice. When we think and imagine an equal society, we have to see these differences as opportunities. An opportunity to be inclusive, to be understanding, to bridge the gaps that separate minority groups from the rights and resources that they deserve. We must see opportunity for community growth and rebuilding to ensure that what was once a safe space, not a safe space, what was once a space of hate, discrimination, hurt, and inequalities is now a space for learning, for respect, for seeing everyone as human first. An equal future isn't something that we can just wish for and just sit back and say, oh, we really want an equal future. But we must work towards it in our own little ways, as individuals, as groups, as citizens of a larger country, of a larger world. An equal world, an equal future is you. It is us. It is embedded deep into our skin, your hopes, your dreams. It is all the stars you see when you close your eyes. It is the grit between your teeth when your heart tugs, when you see and read the news or see a friend without a digital device to be a part of my school just like you. An equal world does not segregate, and it is not selfish, nor is it one that ignores those in need. An equal future looks like being safe to be whoever you are, wherever you are. It is being taken seriously in every institution you will ever exist in. It looks like being enough regardless of your physical and mental abilities, your gender and sexual orientation. It looks like never waking up and being afraid of who you are. It is being so sure of your existence. It is freedom for everyone, not just those that look like you or look like me. Achieving this future is not impossible, but it is hard work. And to achieve this, I just want everyone to take a second, right? We're actually taking a second, that's a pause. And I want you to breathe and place your hand on your chest, like in the part where you can actually feel something moving, like your heart. Feel that beat, right? And are you feeling that? You can type yes in the chat. You see that heartbeat? Those beats per second, per minute. Every beat is another chance to change, to look within and see what can be changed. The truth is, as cliche as it sounds, and here's what I learned recently. I actually learned that cliche only exists because the things that we're talking about are true. Change starts with the person first, and that is called transformational leadership. When you see the ills of the world, pause and breathe and ask yourself, what is it that I see that is somehow reflected in me? Once you can identify that, you can make the steps to change how you see the world and what makes you see the world the way that you do. Remember, when you change yourself, you change the world. If you can change yourself, you can definitely change the world. Achieving an equal future requires you to look within and fix what is being reflected in larger social systems. It is speaking out against injustices and learning every day. It is being inclusive and approaching everything with love. A major step must be taken across sectors and especially within social institutions of learning, and that is called gender transformative approaches. This approach can be applied to literally everything, like everything, y'all. I swear, I promise you, right? And I just want to make reference to this amazing thing that happened recently, and notably the United Nations Girls Education Initiative. And y'all can check that out. People usually call it UNGAI because the way that it's spelled. But they have a youth platform called Transform Education that you can be a part of, right? That wherever you are in the world, you can be a part of this project. And they recently conducted a consultation that examined how we approach education and how can we as advocates, as change makers, as young people can lead gender transformative education. What is gender transformative education? This approach really examines the social inequalities that exist and work towards figuring out what are the root causes, right? So maybe you might think someone, doesn't deserve some kind of rights or should not be allowed in your classroom. What is at the root of thinking that someone is lesser than you? And that's what gender transformative action looks at. It examines the root causes. And then the next step, because we don't just recognize what the issues are, we have to put action into practice, right? And so designing a way forward to remedy these issues. And what does it require? All of us. In whatever way that you exist, it requires all of us. Curriculum developers, ministers, leaders, young people across each sector must apply this approach, doing a complete overhaul of the existing systems and see who are they serving, who is being left behind, and how can we fix this? The solution isn't simple, but we have to ensure that the people who are on the receiving end of this is centered in the conversations. Remember, nothing about us without us. You will never know everything, and I will never know everything. But I promise you, we can learn together.
Thank you, Ashley, for that wonderful, not even a performance, but a wonderful presentation. It's just like you were just so fluent, and I was just like, yes, this is wonderful. We move on to our final speaker, Mr. Jeremy Edwards from the Silver Lining Foundation, another wonderful foundation that does a lot of work on education. I believe that one of their latest publications was on bullying in schools. So, oh, okay, Jeremy could not make it today. Okay, all right. Well, we will move on swiftly, and we will go on to the youth participants. And you will give us, some of your comments, some of your questions, what stood out to you in the presentations, anything that you would like to add. We welcome your ideas now. So I will go to one of the Heroes Youth participants, Zachary. What stood out to you in the presentation? What are some of the ideas that you liked? So you can take it away, Zachary.
Pleasant good afternoon to everyone on the panel and all viewers and participants today. What stood out to me is that everyone here on the panel wants an equal future. Everyone here wants to put forward their work towards bringing out equality. And one opinion I have, or one statement, is that equality is not just for men and women, it's for all genders, right? And one question that everyone sort of forgets is that, is gender equality a concern for men? And I think so, yes, because certain times in the household, the men are more concentrated on the material needs instead of loving, caring, and nurturing for their kids. And this sometimes, for the youth, this leads to peer pressure in school, and this brings forward the violence and stuff like that.
Oh, thank you. And is there any questions that you would like to ask?
Yes, I would like to know if at any time in the workplace did you all ever have a situation where you all would have to, advocate or bring down a person for being biased towards a certain race or gender.
Who would like to take this question? Whew, that is an issue. It really has been. I would like to say for me, any workplace in our society around election time, race was definitely an issue among a lot of people. And, we actually had a discussion, which I led, because this is something that I know about, and I was doing a lot of racial education at work. So, it wasn't just about reporting the person to HR, but it was also educating them about racial issues and how this impacts, people, and, how it fosters a level of inequality in the workplace. And, it's also, not about really chastising, but really teaching people about these issues, because the person really didn't understand. It was just like, this is how I am, this is what I've learned, this is my social behavior. So, it's just really my way of, carrying them along, understanding the issue. And that is what I did, honestly. Anyone else would like to add?
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, Ashley. Ashley. All right. I know she will say she would be kind to her elders. So I will go. Ashley. Zachary, that's an excellent question, because I think you're hitting the nail on the head, because a lot of times we say, speak out. Bertrand coined it nice with SS. But sometimes speaking out comes with its own challenges. And speaking out is not a bed of roses and can land you into hot water. So personally for me, I once worked at a place where there was some practices of racial discrimination, and I could have stayed quiet because it was not necessarily the race that I identified with, so it wasn't affecting me. But I chose to speak out because it was wrong. And because of that, I was victimized and eventually fired because I spoke out. And some of my coworkers were like, but this doesn't affect you. Why you want to champion this cause? And I had to make the point that if something is wrong, then it's wrong, and if something affects some of us, then it affects all of us.
Yeah.
So thanks for the question, Zachary, and I'll pass it over to Ashley now.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I think it exists. I think almost in every place that we will go, there is a hint of it. And the thing is that it's so normalized and it's almost like second nature that we don't even recognize our biases, like how it ends up manifesting. So even in school, I remembered in university, whenever we will have like group projects, right? We know how people assign roles, and we know who has to do the things. And usually some of the people will just sit back and relax. They were typically boys at the time, right? We just sit back and relax and just let the girls do all of the work and just taking the notes and whatnot. And even like looking at the different workplaces that have existed, not all of them, luckily. But you do recognize how you're engaged based on who you are, if you're maybe too assertive, or if, just by virtue of being woman, that when you share any kind of thing, sometimes egos get involved. And so people might feel uncomfortable, like, why is this woman talking to me like that? Why is she saying that? When in reality, if a man is assertive, we're going to be like, oh, wow, he real tough, like, But when a woman is assertive, we hear all the bad things. And it happens even with our friendships. It happens across the board. So it's something that we really have to look in. And I heard everyone talk about it with really examining where these inequalities come from. And most times it's because of how we're socialized. And I love that Adiola mentioned that, because I'm really training my brain to be understanding of where people are at. Because I used to struggle with that a lot. Like, keep thinking, like, why don't you know this? But realizing I didn't know that like before, and we're all learning, so it's important.
And we are all learning. I'd like to take it over to Janelle, the other youth participant. Can you tell us, like, what stood out to you in the presentation, your opinion of, what issues need to be discussed, and, any questions that you would have for the panelists?
I think the information so far was just very insightful, and one thing that stood out to me was when Mr. Liverpool was talking about the football and Messi's salary compared to women that would probably just as good as him. I think it's very shocking, and yeah, it definitely shows, how gender can separate us, and I think that needs to change. And me as a youth, looking forward and in the future, I definitely would like to be a part of that change.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, and that is something called the gender pay gap. And definitely, I think that if it is that you want to get involved, there are organizations that do education on these type of issues of gender, like Feminist. So you can join, different organizations that give you this type of information, so you can know, hey, this is the gender pay gap. This is what this means. So you need to, really look out to groups and join and have discussions with people who are in the field. And there are many youth leaders that are willing to work with you, and you can be a youth correspondent and give your ideas and prioritize what these organizations should be dealing with, in your school, at home, and wherever. What are groups that you are involved in? It would really help us assist in carrying the nation forward in terms of equality, and the child ambassadors as well. That is what it's all about. Do you have any questions for any of the panelists?
My question is how you all got the confidence, like earlier Zachary asks, have you ever dealt with like gender or stuff in a workplace? And I wanted to know how you all got the confidence to speak out on it.
Again, for me, I can begin. I got the confidence because of doing gender at university. There was a women's studies course. It was a foundational course that I did, and it taught us about, the inequalities that women face, sexual harassment in the workplace, different issues that I could name. Naming the issue is very important. So actually me educating myself gave me the courage so I could call this out and say why this is wrong and how this affects me. So generally educating myself really gave me the courage. And I know, there are people who would be, your manager or persons that, are in authority, but you can't go wrong when you know exactly what the issues are and what your recourse is in a workplace. So you just have to be strong and stand firm, but educating yourself is one of the first steps in having the courage to speak out. Anybody else?
Yes, certainly. I think one of the best ways to get that courage is to really look at yourself and identify one time in your life that you have felt discrimination, or you have felt at your lowest, or you have felt as though you weren't heard, or you weren't given a fair opportunity. And if you could take that one moment and magnify it, you can walk in the footsteps of many others who are experiencing that. It's an ugly feeling, it's a harsh feeling, it's an unfair and unjust feeling. And I think we ought to take those emotions, take those feelings, take that experience and let it multiply. And the second thing for me that makes me want to speak out and advocate against issues that I'm passionate about is really, I know some of us are readers and some of us aren't. So I have two pathways that you can take. You can either read or you can look at documentaries. So for example, there's Half the Sky, Fighting Oppression Against Women. That book is a powerful book. That book, I came across it and it really looked at how women around the world are experiencing human trafficking, they're experiencing sexual abuse, they're experiencing some horrendous things. And just reading that in itself makes you so uncomfortable that you need to create change. So it shifts your mindset and educates you. And there's also a documentary on it that you can look at if you go on YouTube or just Google that as well. And secondly, there's a book for the males, for brothers out there like, man, I know what them thing, bruh. Man, I know what them thing. There's also a book called Memoirs of a Boy Soldier by Ishmael Bear. It's about what males go through in terms of becoming a child soldier and being inducted into gangs. And I'm saying this because that does also affect equality as well. Because if you are in gangs at a young age, it robs you of education, it robs you of mental health, it robs you in so many ways. And I think also reading that book allowed me to open my mind to say, look, if this young man went through this and he became an advocate, I also need to look for points where I need to speak out, honestly. So I would say really identifying yourself with some of the emotions based on what you've experienced in the past. And secondly, educating yourself through documentaries or just through, videos on YouTube. For young people, that's, it's good. And it helps you to have that courage to fight forward. So I hope that answers your question a bit, my good.
Adiola, can I? Yeah.
Yeah.
So Janelle, that's a fantastic question. And I want to add that, sometimes, I've been really scared in some of the decisions to stand up and speak out. I have not always had that confidence. And sometimes what it means as well is just being able to lean on people that you can trust to share. If you're not ready to speak out, having friends or family members that you can lean on and share what's bothering you. So sometimes I could say sometimes the confidence isn't always there. Sometimes I feel really scared and bummed out on the inside. And I think that's normal. So don't think that, or don't let anyone give you the impression that you have to walk around like super confident 100% of the time. I think that's not being human. We cry and we fall and we feel and we mess things up. And I think that too is part of the work, understanding and appreciating, our humanness, but it's important that we have a safe group of friends and a safe team that we could always go back to and get strength again.
I just want to add one quick tiny thing. And because I got a little emotional listening to everyone share. Because speaking out sometimes it's really hard, right? And even when you get into the process of doing it all the time, it's not all the time you're gonna feel confident. Sometimes you're gonna feel confident, sometimes you just want to roll up in a ball and cry and just because when you are an advocate and you are faced head on with the social issues that exist, it hits you. Seeing, even I'm pretty sure that you all might know of a friend in class, who don't have the same resources as you, and it can break your heart. And so even through that process, it's important to take care of yourself when you want to to advocate for others and when you're advocating for yourself, because a lot of times when we're advocating, it's not just for everyone else, but it's really for ourselves too. So just, keep that in mind.
Definitely. Since this is a youth forum, again, we're going back to the youth speakers. So I would go back to Zachary. How do you see the youth playing a part in creating the future? Like, what do you think the youth should be involved in, or what do you want to do to create an equal society?
I could see us involved in terms of speaking up the LGBTQ. Currently in Trinidad and Tobago and worldwide to say there's a lot of discrimination here. And I would like for us to, put aside our differences. We tend to have a lot of opinions. I think we should keep it to ourselves sometimes,
And Janelle, same question. Like, how do you see the youth playing a part in creating the future that you would like to see in terms of equality?
I think coming together and, going to like campaigns and doing all these stuff together, just, coming together as one, and definitely agree with what Zachary said.
And are there any particular issues that you would like to see the youth be involved in that you are probably passionate about?
For me, gender and race.
Oh, definitely. Two big ones. So same question to the panelists now. Ashley, how do you see the youth playing a part in creating the future you envision? And same question for the rest of the panelists.
I think young people are super important because I think more than ever, we have a really, really unique opportunity to examine how we are affected, because we exist on that. Because I'm also young now, I'm 23. Even though I might be old and we're there. But we exist on that intersection of being young, but also having the multiple identities that we have. And there are so many people who would have, paved the way for us to see what are the inequalities that existed and how they have been doing it. But we have the energy, we have the knowledge, and we really have that power to be able to speak up, right? It's really important to seek a mentor. So there's that lovely cross-section that exists where you're young, you're definitely going to be taking it. I mean, look at y'all. Like, I can't, y'all, this is like beautiful, seeing young people so passionate, right? But you all are going to be the next ones to take over. And so it's important to seek a mentor, somebody who's already existing, doing the work, because you're going to take over. So have that intergenerational dialogue, be a part of things, volunteer. I know volunteering, you don't make money sometimes, but volunteering is super important, because I started off, most things I do right now is voluntary, not everything. But how I ended up learning about gender and gender justice was through volunteering. Like, I would have seen events happening and couldn't afford tickets, and I would volunteer so that I can be able to just be in the room and just listen to what is happening, right? You're ushering people in, but your ears peak to listen to hear what the speaker is saying, right? But that's so important. And I feel like what has to happen, because you all are very capable, young people are capable, because I feel like young people are doing everything to be invited into these spaces. Sometimes you just have to walk in these spaces. But those that are in power, who's listening, ministers and different leaders, you have to have young people as partners. Not like, oh, we're doing this for young people, but they're partners. They know a lot, and we're building this future for them. So young people play a really big part. And I really hope that you see your power, because it's hard when you're excluded from spaces and you don't think your voice matters. But trust me, it matters. And without you, it's really nothing, May think about it, yo. Remove young people from the equation and realize nothing, and have nothing, right? So
okay, we move on to Bertrand. How do you see the youth playing a part in creating the future you envision?
That's excellent. I mean, Ashley did an amazing job. She covered everything that was in my mind. She just jumped on it. So I am extremely happy about that. But what I would say, though, is, of course, I just want to piggyback on the volunteering piece. Please, young people, volunteer. It's a funny world where you're taught that if you give freely, you'll be taken advantage of. But trust me, there's just some law to life that when you give, it comes back to you. So I just want to really affirm you in your volunteering. You will learn great leadership skills, how to solve problems, conflicts, how to manage it. It's a great foundation. The second way that I see you playing a part is through social media. I am telling you, your voice and your ability on social media surpasses anything that we old people can do, you know? And the way that you all have been able to champion the use of just different things, you know, TikTok and creating videos and graphic designs and using Canva has been phenomenal. We made an experiment at the Office of the Prime Minister, in that I said, you know what, we're going to sit back and let the charity ambassadors take control. And they were able to do projects. Two of which stand out to me. They were able, in 2020, they were able to reach, based on social media metrics, over 100,000 persons through videos that they created on themselves and also Canva social media graphics on 3 of their favorite child rights. And that metrics blew us away. There's no way, I'm being honest, that we on our own would have been able to reach so many people with messages that were so positive and youth-centered and youth-creative. So I want to encourage you all to create messages and have your friends share them. And the last thing that I would say is apply to the Charity Ambassador Program. It sounds like a shameful plug, but it really moves me, because one of the things, there are 2 things that we're doing with it. One, within the National Child Policy Committee, we have a Child Rights Ambassador subcommittee, and it's made up of 9 young people who includes a child living with a disability. She is deaf, and so we have an interpreter for her. Then is also made up of a child from a children's home. So he himself shares views that are from that perspective of a community residence. And then we have a child from Tobago, and then we have other children in it. Different races, different demographics, different types of schools. And when they come together, the way that they see the world is completely different from what I would expect. So all of the ideas that I have, to be quite honest, I throw them out the window and I allow them to shape it and create it. So they've created animations, they've created projects that just different views of things that we would have. And the second thing we're doing with them is that we're going to, next year with the charity ambassadors who apply in September, we're going to align them to every ministry that has something to do with youth and child development. And it's going to be a project, it's based on the policy. They're going to be aligned to either implement, develop, monitor and evaluate a project from beginning to end, or join on and make it better. And then we're going to measure it to make sure that their input is actually taken into consideration. And for where I have been sitting, I'm seeing that our young people are taking control, like the ones I mentioned who are going from Trinidad and Tobago to global stages and being heard. And I can guarantee you, applying through that is a safe space where it's child-led, it's child-focused, it's youth-driven, and it's something that has the entire team sitting back like, wow, it is, the future is now. It is in your hands, and your energy and your perspective are powerful, powerful. So, I mean, I get goosebumps, so I'll stop now, but please, yo, just get involved. You know what I mean? Just get involved, all right?
And Kevin, to you, like, how do you see youth playing a part in creating the future you envision?
Yeah, thanks. And thanks, Ashley, for sharing your age. I'm just a little older than you, just a little. So yeah, the volunteering piece is really important. I want to re-emphasize that. Young people have so many ideas, and I'm not saying that in a patronizing way. They really have ideas that challenges the old or the traditional way of thinking, you know. And what I want to encourage the viewers and the other members of the panel, the youth members of the panel, is use the potential and the gifts that you have. You know, so if you like writing, write it down. You know, if you like music, put it in a song. You know, whatever is your skill, you know, what comes naturally to you, use that. You know, everyone's path is different, but I think we all want the same thing, especially within this context. We want an equal world and an equal future, equal Trinidad and Tobago, equal Caribbean. So use what you have, use the gifts you have. I would admit sometimes adults kind of lock young people out of spaces, you know, and only turn to young people when we want to do a focus group or just want to get some feedback on things. So look for those spaces and look for those organizations that really are trying to center their work on young people, and enter those spaces and take advantage of the opportunities available. Don't be afraid to disagree with the way things are or the way things have always been. Challenge it, because that's the only way change can happen. I'm really hopeful of the future, because I know that we have this very conscious young people. And when I was your age, I wasn't this conscious about all these social issues. So I am really hopeful about the future. Use what you have and make a difference.
All right. So we're moving back to the youth participants again. What opportunities would you like to be available to you in order to prepare for your future, in terms of not only creating an equal world, but what opportunities would you like for there to be for the youth, and that you see that is not really there or that is lacking in the country? What opportunities would you like to see available? We could move to Zachary.
Speaking of the campaigns and a lot more of these type of forums, because honestly these days we don't see a lot of this type of forum, we don't see it, and I think it's very powerful, and it sends a message out there to all of the youth to participate more in these type of stuff, so if it empower the future, gain more information and knowledge.
And Janelle, same question. What opportunities would you like to have as a young person to prepare for your future, and not only in terms of equality, but also for you to get more involved?
I would have to say the forums, the forums, and just the campaigns, and finding new different ways of doing. So okay, so I think someone mentioned earlier about how young people, technology, we come more with technology and stuff. So using the forums and using the technology to inspire youth, and yeah.
Yeah. And panelists, again, what opportunities, do you think that should be available to youth, to prepare for the future? We could start with Ashley.
I think there's so many.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
There are so many existing campaigns and programs, but I think it's how it's marketed and where it's at. I really think it's important for us to go where young people are, right? Young people, I don't know. Well, from my experience, I don't really see people on Facebook that much, right? But there's TikTok. There's so many new platforms that are popping up, and I think those opportunities need to be marketed there. So I know there is organizations like the Heroes Foundation that has the whole Heroes headquarters that is geared towards that kind of development, and there's so many other social NGOs that are having these kind of programs that young people can be a part of. So I think that is important, as well as as Kevin would have mentioned earlier, not just having them as a part of focus groups, but when you're planning and developing these programs, to make sure that you consult with young people. So a quick plug, right? I'm currently doing project coordination for a project called First Time, Last Time that is being done by CADV. And we are currently in that phase of talking to young people to shape what that project will look like, because we realize that it's important. If we're going to shape something for young people, they have to be at the center. And so I'll definitely chat with Lawrence to see how we can get young people to have that conversation. Oh, and thank you for that. Why Will, the Young Women in Leadership Initiative, is being hosted by the Caribbean Women in Leadership Trinidad and Tobago National Chapter, which is an opportunity for you as young people to get experience in Parliament, right? So understanding how is it that you can be an effective leader as a young person. I know right now it's open for people ages 18 to 25. However, if you're 17 right now, but you're turning 18, in time for the Parliament is sitting in November, you can apply once you're turning 18 by then. But that opportunity really trains you to be an effective leader, and also to get experience as to what it's like in Parliament, how to be able to be a gender transformative leader, one that looks at good governance. And so that I was a part of that last year. It was the best experience. It really shaped who I am today. And so, look, why Will is closing, the application is closing tomorrow. So you have some time if you're going to apply, but definitely apply for that and stay tuned for all of the programs. But we definitely need to put it in the right places.
And Mr. Moses, what opportunities would you like to see available to for the youth to prepare for the future?
Yeah, I think there are opportunities out there, but I agree that we need to have them in a central place more, so young people can find them. So that's something that is always a challenge, depending if you're from a rural area or where you're from. Tobago, it's always an issue of people you're not being able to find things. But what I would say though is that apart from the opportunities, I think one of the things that we really would have to work on is us as adults being able to be more inviting and to learn how to speak engaging youth-focused language. I know that shifts the question, but it's a big part of it, because we could have opportunities, but if young people aren't really in an engaging space or youth-friendly environment or space, then the opportunities they won't go toward it. And it really is something that we definitely have to work on as a society. I've been in a number of forums where I see young people. I remember one in particular that really hit me, where young people were invited to be a part, but there was still a lot old school, see and be heard type of perspective, and they were willing to share, but it just kind of stifled their opportunity. And for that, I want to say that there are opportunities out there, but for young people who experience that, please, reach out to a mentor. So mentorship is another area in terms of more opportunities I'd like to see, and it's available throughout our nation, in that you can find a mentor anywhere if you go up to them and ask them. If you see someone, it's very rare that people would deny it. They may not have as much time, but they would, in some way, they may be able to help you. But keep trying that. That's one of the things that I think would help guide you through it. But so those are the things that come to mind in terms of that. Yeah.
Kevin, what opportunities would you like to see available for the youth to prepare for the future?
Yeah, and I'm building off of Bertrand's last point. I would like to see where organizations become more intentional with their mentorship opportunities and allow young people to come into the company and have the opportunity, not just for one day, but in a more sustainable way, to learn from others in different positions, and in a very meaningful way. So that mentorship within organizations, so that young people could choose the different career paths and based on their interests.
Wonderful. But I would like to plug in my idea. It's a bit radical, but I believe that, a lot of governments see us as a youth booth, and, we would have a forum here, a forum there. We've been through the forums. We've been through the forums. And, I think consultation has to be a whole lot better with open, honest conversations, and us actually being able to prioritize policy development and what is on the agenda. That is definitely something that, okay, we could speak of something at a forum and then it actually gets tabled in Parliament as the youth discussion, whatever. That would be something that I would like to see. And also a really functional youth parliament where, there are, issues that are being discussed and it actually gets tabled in, our parliament, where, we come up with an agenda or policies that need to be amended or changed or whatever, and our agenda is actually taken seriously. That is something that I would like to see happen. So a time check, I believe we have 5 more minutes. And we have another question. I wonder if we can take a question from the audience. Do we have any questions from the audience? I would take one question. So I would like to talk about disabilities. So how do we think about youth and disability, and what support would you all like to see youth in these schools? So how is it, what do you think about, your peers who are dealing with disabilities, and what support have you seen, or what support would you like at school? So we go back to the youth participants. Zachary?
For disabilities, I had some friends who had, and during the time in school, it didn't have much, but you could have seen that the teachers and the staff, they all put in their work to make sure they enjoyed their time in school and had it comfortable.
Okay, Janelle?
I think I know a few people as well with disabilities in my school, and I think it's the people that surround them, they should be more supportive, not just the teachers, and people with disabilities most of the time they get bullied. So I think people, instead of bullying someone, just support them and try to help them as best as possible.
And do you think of any, program or anything that would be useful to assist children or youth with disability at school that you think would help? their experience be a bit better?
I can't think of any at the moment, but yeah, we could create one.
Definitely. Okay, so I could go to Mr. Moses. I believe that you would have been involved in some of these aspects, and in your portfolio as the child affairs coordinator. Can you share if there's one of them who wants to deal with youth with disabilities, to have that social support tools or?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the things that, if it's from the perspective of what a young person can do, it really involves that whole double S thing, serving and speaking out about it. When you see a friend or a peer who isn't having access to the same opportunities, I'll be quite frank with you, which I always probably would get in trouble for. But nonetheless, I remember when we were developing national child policy, we had years ago, we had some focus groups to begin, and a young person. We invited a wide range of children, and a boy said, sir, every year, he was blind, and he said, sir, every year we get our Braille textbooks at the end of the school term. And that blew my mind, because I think what we have on paper is that children with disabilities would receive their Braille textbooks in the school term. And then, of course, it shows how the systems aren't always connected. And that stuck with me. That was really about 3 or 4 years ago, and that stuck with me since then. And it really just reminded me of the importance of students advocating, of teachers advocating, of parents advocating and speaking out when something is happening, because quite often people who sit at different levels aren't aware of it because they think that everything is working fine. And so I think that's one way. And another way is through empowering, giving opportunities to children living with disabilities. One of our charity ambassadors, her name is Mandy Bailey. She's been on Unique But Not Different, that TTC segment with Shamila, and she has videos on Child Rights Amb on Instagram and Facebook. And I've been blown by her passion. When she does sign language, bruh, it's like, yo, this is sign language from the heart. And you can't help but know that there's a passion burning in her. And as I ask questions about her, I was told that she is someone in the deaf community that they really look at from a young age and saying she has something to say. And so I feel as though what we may need to focus on too is empowering others with disabilities as young people and as adults, in terms of letting them know that your voice is important. So we make sure we have interpreters for her at every segment. We make sure that we take our time to pause to have her featured as well. And those are some of the ways that I think we can create the change. It really begins with this grassroots type of approach, I find, and then it really bubbles up. So I want to encourage everybody, all of you amazing young people, to keep that in mind. It's never, don't think that your voice doesn't matter, it doesn't contribute, because I'm seeing that voices are mattering and contributing.
Definitely. So time check, we have 6 minutes left. To wind down this session, I also want to talk about the pandemic and mental health in terms of youth. That is something that, we need to discuss on this forum. Zachary, back to the youth participants again. What challenges with mental health do you think is prevalent, or, that, you would have experienced or senior peers experienced with the pandemic and school, and, what do you think can be done to support the youth in the pandemic in terms of mental health and, education? So we can start with Zachary. Yeah.
One thing I've seen is that a lot of them have been stressed out because I was in Form 5 at that time, and a lot of us didn't really have the mindset to continue going throughout and studying more throughout this time, because it was like we hope we could just sit down and relax. A lot of them didn't study to do anything. And in my opinion, I think that if we at that time didn't have paper 1 and 2s, I didn't think a lot of us would have passed, because if it had the paper 2s, a lot of us wouldn't have passed because of the mindset a lot of them went into at that time. And I think to improve the situation, we should honestly have more people encouraging us more, pushing us more to the review, because it was just going to class, study, come out. It wasn't like encouraging or anything like that. It was just we home for we could do anything we want.
Yeah, understand. Janelle, what were some of the mental health challenges that you would have seen with school, education, throughout the pandemic, and what do you think should be done to support youth?
I think is feeling caged or trapped. A lot of us was feeling caged, like, oh Lord, we can't see we friends, we have nowhere to go, like. And then sometimes with the online experience, you tend to feel kind of stressed. Like, for instance, say you're in a class and suddenly the mic not working. You're just like, oh gosh, so what Miss now say? So it's kind of like you feel sad. You feel sad, and I think that was some of the challenges and what people were stressed about.
Okay, so quickly, we have 3 minutes left. So, some bullet points of what do you think can be done to assist the youth in mental health throughout the pandemic and education. We can start with Ashley.
We definitely need to allocate more resources when it comes to mental health. It isn't something that we see on the forefront. It's just like a by the way thing. Like, when it comes to press conferences, we saw that little short clip about mental health, but it wasn't something that was really all encompassing, looking at the different experiences that people actually have and what they can actually do in a pandemic, with their different living situations. So we definitely need to allocate more resources to that, ensure that there are guidance counselors, not just one for a large school, but really looking how we're assigning that and ensuring that we just put money into it, right? And have the resources that are free has to be good and has to be accessible.
Mm-hmm. And Bertrand, I know you would have done the mental health work for children, which we would have shared. So what is your take on the mental health issue and the pandemic? What can we do,
Well, I'm a therapist, so I could talk all day.
Yeah.
So I won't.
Yeah.
So I would just go to the point and just share 3 resources because it's great to talk, but the resources have stuff. So one, the mental health workbook, which is on opm-gca.gov.tt/childzone. And if you click on mental health, you can download it there. And there are videos as well that give tips, lots of tips that you can use. Secondly, Childline. Google Childline, and they have 3 ways. One, there is the phone line, which is 131, that you can call and talk to someone 24/7 if at night you're feeling depressed or you feel alone. They also have an app which you can download. It's called My Childline in the Android and Apple store, and that app has a chat feature, and you can play games as well in that app. So you could just, it's positive games. When your parents say, "Why are you playing games?" Yo, Mr. Moses and them in the future forum say, "I can play games in Childline app, So don't say it like that though, but you could try. And also, so there's the app, there's the website, which also has a chat feature that you can go online and chat with someone anonymously if you feel like you need someone to talk to, because that's something that people just need. And the third one is findcareTT.com. FindcareTT.com. That was a resource that was developed under the Ministry of Health with all of us as stakeholders, a cross-sectoral, intersectional approach, I guess. And that also has a list of all of the mental health services available in Trinidad and Tobago that are free in your community health centers, CALM clinic, contact numbers. And those are the places that I would encourage people to go. And you will find resources at one of those to address one of your needs. But other than that, love yourself, yo. Love yourself through this difficult journey. You are enough. You are enough, and you'll get through.
Oh, and quickly, Kevin, we
Yes.
have a few minutes, 1 minute.
Yes. So I just want to add that there is this thing called toxic positivity, and sometimes we give this impression, especially to young people, that we're supposed to all be walking around smiling and happy, like if nothing is wrong. But what I want to say is that it's okay to feel trapped and isolated and locked away. And those are normal feelings that even adults feel. But we shouldn't stay there for too long. We should be able to identify when we feel that way. Bertrand would have shared a lot of positive resources, and it's important that we talk about it. Adults go through all the same stresses that the young persons on the panel identified. So I want you to know that there's nothing wrong with you in experiencing those things, but it's important that we talk about it. About it with your parents, trusted adults, with your peers, and that we work through it together.
Wonderful. And that is really how we want to wrap up today's session. We know that is a difficult time. We're all going through it. But there is possibly some light out of the tunnel. Thank you, youth participants for coming today and really being engaged in this discussion. This was an amazing discussion for us. Honestly, I really enjoyed this. And join, volunteer. I'm always open. You can message me, if you want to join different organizations. There are a lot of youth organizations out there. I formed my NGO. Ashley formed her own NGO as a young person, and we have been doing really well. So, there's a lot of things out there. In some of your downtime, you can make a lot of friends and mentors, and there's a lot of people out there that are willing to support you. So again, I would like to thank all the panelists and our youth presenters today and the Heroes Foundation. I believe I can take it back to Lawrence to close this session, but thank you again, everyone.
I guess no one said. So my apologies for that. This is technology again. Come up with three. This is technology. I really want to say thank you to the equality panel. You all did a fantastic job explaining to us that equality starts here, equality starts now, equality starts with us. And then now we have a really special lineup again to wrap up today's proceedings. We have our chairman, Mr. Joel Monty Pemberton, chairman of the Heroes Foundation, and three of our youth participants, Giovanna, Nisa, Cyan, who are here with us this afternoon to talk about the way forward. How do we take all that we learned, all that we heard today, and create this way forward? So it is my absolute pleasure to pass you over to this phenomenal team to end our session today. Giovanna, Nisa, Cyan, can any of you hear us?
We can hear you, but we cannot hear Monty.
Excellent. So we can hear Giovanna, we can hear Nisa, we can hear Cyan. Monty, we're not hearing you, unfortunately. Okay, just unmute yourself and we should be able to hear you. Because you're mute. Yes, we can hear you perfectly well now.
All right, okay, great. Okay, sorry, I was talking to myself, similar to Lauren just now. How are you ladies doing?
Good, sir, and you?
I'm fine.
Not too bad. I'm really happy to be here with you all and to meet each of you all and the rest of the panel, the rest of the participants on this in this forum, which is the first forum we've ever had like this. So really eager to hear how you guys thought it went so far. What are your initial thoughts from today? What are you hyped about? Please share with me, your thoughts, and let's have an open discussion on how we take this forward.
Well, I thought it was very motivational. I thought the conversations were very informative. Some of the things that was spoken about, I learned something new today, so I was glad about that. And a lot of the topics, so we had education, energy, and equality, um, some of them I may not have been too passionate about before, but after hearing the conversations that were had and how they were passionate about it, and um, everything motivated me to want to get involved in these things. So I hope that in the future that it would have more opportunities like this where I could take part and I could share my view on these certain topics.
Excellent. How about you?
For me, it was very engaging, and I felt like I was listened to, even though I didn't express my opinions live about most of the topics. I felt like I was heard because most of my concerns in particular areas and most of my thoughts, they were voiced, and they made me feel like they cared. They genuinely cared and had an interest in the topics that were discussed. So I felt really listened to. I felt very, I felt very listened to.
That's good. I think we could find out, what do we do afterwards? Now they've listened to you, we have to do something to make it action or for it to happen. So we could talk about that afterwards. Naisa, how about you?
Basically, it's the same thing that Cyan and Giovanna said. It is the same. I totally understand. Like I felt like I was heard without speaking. If that is if that's understood, like I felt like everything that I possibly have said before to like other people outside of the Future Forum, as if everyone as if they heard when I was saying that, and they came in Future Forum and was like, oh, this is what Nisa said, so we're reiterating. So it was good that it had people who understood what I was saying for a long time to other people outside of Future Forum. So that was good.
Isn't it amazing that sometimes we sit at home alone and think we're the only ones going crazy when everybody else around us going crazy as well? And then when we create this like forum to talk about it, we realize we're all crazy together. We can do crazier things together. And sometimes, having that conversation is really, I guess, as Cyan was saying, listen, but realize that we're not alone. We're not alone with this. We're not alone with, the world is in a major transition, right? You have green energy, you have oil, you have gas. You have what is it going to be? I come from the oil and gas sector, and it's like, well, we used to be drilling wells in 30 years' time. We probably don't want that. Different conversation, right? So it's good to know that, for me, that we don't sit down home alone thinking it's only us. That it's all of us. And, if we come together, the power of that team can make the changes we want to see. Right?
Yeah, and I would also just like to say that, being a part of the generation, I am a part of these conversations. You can't really get away from it. Like everywhere on social media, these conversations happen, and I'm grateful for that because it needs to be spoken about. And I think like this forum was done on a very large scale, but I think we could work on ways where these conversations could happen all the time, and like ways that we could change need to happen all the time, whether it's through social media, short videos, whatever it is, but it should happen all the time.
So Giovanna, so that's a very interesting point. So how do you make that happen all the time?
Well, I think, whether it's a post to share, whether it's a video to share, we live in technology era, so things move very quickly. So I think a simple, someone having an opinion, someone having like a speech or essay to say, they could write it, share it on the internet, a video, they could speak, share it on the internet. I think we need to use the internet more to really talk about these things. And after we speak about it is also the initiative to take. So I think a lot of things needs to be put in place for us to be able to actively participate to help change, you know.
So some people call me crazy. So I'm going to challenge three of you, all right? Because I quite like that idea. And we also at Heroes have a foundation, a technology platform with SharePoint and so on. And Lawrence is innovative with Keyron and so on. You know, they could create a chat room where you could come in virtually, set up meetings like this and just have your own forum. But sometimes, you know, we get caught up in the day-to-day activities that we need other leaders to step up and do these things. So we could provide a forum and you guys can come in and do what you want. And maybe that's something that we should put down and maybe this team take leadership on, right? And say we're going to create a forum and I'm sure Lawrence is there listening somewhere, probably stating, "Oh my God, I've one more thing to do." But create like a chat forum within the foundations, the technology platform, where you know you can come in on a Friday evening online, maybe not a Friday, but a Friday evening online, virtually share points, etc., take points, and if you want, you know, send if you have action points you need help with, send it through to the foundation, to ourselves, the board, Lawrence. If you need help with, so you know, we could see things and that momentum going, as I call it, the crazy ideas. I'm trying to remember what Steve Jobs says. There's a video he had where the world doesn't change by normal people; it's the crazy ones who change the world. There's a quote on it. I'll get it while we're talking. So who's going to take the lead on that?
I think that it's a great initiative because we already have access to being in Heroes, which has allowed us to voice our opinions on various stuff that we had ideas about. It didn't force us to change, but it welcomed the change. It welcomed us changing, if you know what I mean. Because most of us had ideas that we weren't so confident about, but when we joined Heroes or became active in being part of Heroes, we realized that other people had the same ideas. It didn't make us feel alone. We felt more encouraged to reproduce more ideas, and it became a big space where we could learn, share new things, and create. So I feel like something like that on a bigger scale, or a more diverse scale, more accessible, it would be really comforting for some people, because you never know who could have an idea that could possibly change the world.
And I found the quote from Steve Jobs. So can I read it to you all? All right. That's it, but that's not quite it, Lawrence. Here's what it says. It says, "Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the wrong pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. The only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see geniuses. Because the ones who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are the ones who do." Now, I'm not saying to break the rules. I'm not saying right? I want to be clear on that. I'm not sending that message. But I think if we pool our ideas together and create that forum, and we get everyone behind it, whatever these ideas are, you know, you could take charge of your destiny, and don't think for 1 minute that you can't, right? And in so doing, we create great things, right? Once you and we all have good values and so on. So let's coming out of this, let's find that medium where you could share the ideas. And I'm joking about the crazy side because, you know, it sounds crazy, but you know, it's powerful stuff. And once you have that medium, and if the medium doesn't exist at Heroes, we will commit to make it happen. But I'm sure there's some way within the what do you call it, the platform, that we could create a breakout room and so on, you know, where people come in, leave. It's almost like a coffee shop, a cafe shop kind of thing. Come in, well, you have to drink your own coffee at home, obviously, and then move ahead. All right, cool. So what else did you all learn today?
One thing that I learned that was kind of, well, I knew about it, but I didn't know it was to that point, when they talked about the difference between Lionel Messi's his annual pay and the amount of women that they had to add up to only get half of his annual pay. And that, to me, it was mind-boggling to think that those women could be on the same scale of talent as him, or maybe even better, and they get less, and they are spoken about less.
I think that's a very important point with equality and equal pay. And that's something that should be eradicated. It should purely be based on talent and not gender or anything related. So everyone would love to be paid what Messi is paid. But there's another quote I saw from a doctor who, at the beginning of COVID, when asked how quickly could you get the vaccine, and she says, "Well, I'm paid $10,000 a month. Why don't you go buy Messi? You're paying him $50 million." So it also goes to show the values in the world as to who gets money and who, the person who created the vaccine or the person who takes care of the elderly and sick are paid, one thousand, a very, minuscule amount to someone who plays football. I'm not downgrading Messi or any Messi fans on this call because he's a good player, and that also, that equity, not equality, that equity is also important, I think, in the world. And I hope to see a rebalancing of that equity in the world today, so that we could alleviate poverty and everyone could live how they should be living. So that's something that's quite important. So yeah, and I have to say, equity is not socialism, because I know that people listen. It's being equitable, being paid a fair wage, and so on, right? Going forward. So I agree to Nisa. It's not fair, but that's how the world works. Again, it's how do we rebalance that and rebalance that equity? Because we fuel it. We go to the stadiums, we buy the t-shirts, we create it. So again, it's how do we adjust that, and what do we do to help rebalance that equity and make sure we have equal pay and people are paid for their value. So nurses, doctors, all those sort of things. They're paid. Teachers in particular, I think they're grossly underpaid. But yet still, they're responsible for creating the minds of the future. So in a rebalanced world, probably they should be the highest paid. Yeah. So, Cyan.
And another thing to add on to what Nyasa said, most of the time it comes down to equality, but even though that's how the world works, I see it more, it needs a bit of rewiring, because yes, the change starts with us, but what about the people that have already started to adapt to how the world is? Like babies, little children in preschool, they've seen how the world works, they are adapting to it, they're living, even babies born in the pandemic, they've adapted to it, so that's their new normal. But it takes all of us, it takes everybody to realize that even though this is the new normal, it's not an acceptable new normal in some cases, like with the inequality, because most people, they see something happening on the street, and even though they feel bad for it, they don't speak up because they're afraid of the repercussions, they're afraid of what that might mean for them. And most of the time is that one person that makes the change that starts this all. So when you speak to the younger generation, it can't just end with the younger generation. It needs to start with the generation coming after the younger generation and everyone before. So I think we need to implement things to teach even children, like little children, as low as primary school or kindergarten, to make them more aware of these topics. Because the more aware they are, the more they could spot the differences in it and realize the change they want to make. Yeah.
And if I could add on to what Cyan said, one thing, I just saw that they asked for my name pronunciation. It's Nisa, just in
Nisa,
case.
no problem.
Also, another thing, I have a thing where adults do where they're like, well, y'all are too young to speak on these topics, or y'all are too young to know about these things, or you shouldn't be talking about these things because you're not of age to be, or like the big people talking, so go by the little children. When we are of the age to know what's going on in the world, and we know, and we should be able to speak and at least have some kind of say to and change, so we could do something about what's going on in the world.
So Nisa, that's why Future Forum was created. That's what Heroes is here. The founder of Heroes is on and listening, Philip Julian. He had a dream 19 years ago. And, we're seeing that, evolve into something much larger. It's really to empower your voices, for you all to be heard. And all of us went through that when we were younger. You're too young, go inside the room, youngsters supposed to be seen, not heard, all of those old myths. I think we've all been through that, but finding that forum to speak out is something that's core to Heroes, and creating that medium where you all speak out and we are the medium for your combined voices, individual and combined voices. And that's something that the board is very passionate about. And I must say we have a very good board. And they're very passionate about that. And I think this is the start of something great. So how do we take what we're doing here and ensure we continue it? That's the important thing, that it's not a one-stop shop that we end this here. This is a journey, right? And this journey will continue when we're long gone as well, because it's a continuous evolving journey. We are here to pass on the baton, right? And we keep on passing on that baton. So it's important we keep that in mind as well. It will never end, because in 30 years from now, the kids will come to you and say, well, I'm not being heard on this as well. They might say that as well. So, we have to be prepared also for that change and also to pass on the baton. So that's what we're trying to do, Nisa. So, we need your help, and everyone's help to make sure that continues. And coming out of this forum, we expect to see a lot more of that empowerment of your voices and delivering that to the powers that be. And also looking at ourselves and changing ourselves as well. Because as older folks, well, I'm still 21. We also have to change our mindsets, and you're helping us change that mindset as well. And that's something we have accepted, and we are learning how to change our mindsets as well. So it works both ways. And thank you for that, Nisa. Giovanna.
Yes. Well, taken from the forum, I remember when Mr. Philip Julian was speaking about energy. He said to start something that makes a positive difference in someone's life. And I really took that away. And it really speaks to what Heroes does, because, again, in the education, when they were speaking about mentors and fostering, these dreams that youths have to change the world, Heroes really helps with that, like is a step in that direction. And I think that's where we should be heading for, because a lot of the times you would speak, and I have these conversations with my friends as well, and my siblings as well, and we have all these ideas that we could implement to change the world, but it's really who's listening. And I think Heroes really helps with that aspect of who's listening, because from this forum and from previous things that Heroes has done, we get to say, we get a voice out of this platform. And I think there needs to be more programs and more forums and an initiative to really listen to specifics of what youth have to say and how they want certain things to be changed. Yeah.
Noted. Yeah. So, Lawrence, you heard that, right? So we need more future forums. Probably more regular, probably a quarterly, shorter version, maybe. But we'll certainly think about it and see how we could manage that. Yeah. All right. I think we're running out of time shortly. So in going forward, what do you think? What will be your recommendations? I know we've come up with some action, some points to go forward. What will be your recommendations of how do we ensure we maintain this and create something sustainable from Future Forum? What would you recommend to the board, right? As what you want to see, going forward, and how Heroes could help facilitate that, and through the Future Forums, further empowering your voices and so on. What do you want to see, so we could put that into action?
I think that in addition to more future forums, we need more platforms like Heroes. We need a start of different organizations for not just us, not just our ideas, but also the younger generation after us, their ideas too. Because sometimes little children, they have views and they're like, oh, wait. And you're like, wait, I didn't think about that. What is that? And it starts new ideas where we have a space not only for us to share ours, but think of other people's own as well, not regardless of age. because some people, they tend to see the world in a different view to others, regardless of their place in life, what they're doing with themselves, anything other than that. And most of the times it's their ideas that make the change. So what we need more forums, more places, more organizations like Heroes founded, so we could share our ideas or even just meet to talk about our ideas, just to know that we have somewhere besides Heroes that we could be heard.
Okay.
Can be heard.
Yes. Okay. Agreed. And we're taking notes. I believe this is recorded. Yeah. Yeah.
Adding to what Sian was saying, while we have Heroes, yet Heroes kind of touches on all of these, but going in depth to it, like the conversation about equality and about energy and education, they all were very interesting. And I'm thinking that if we could do forums like these, but specific to each topic and each concern of people, that we could get more ideas on one specific topic, which would help change that topic faster than just broadly speaking about it, because these were broad conversations we had about education, energy, and equality. But if we could have forums where it's specific to each one at certain times, then I think that the point could be made more focused. And I think that it needs to be put in a certain place where people who not just willing to speak about it, but people who needs to hear about it are involved. Because most times people who are involved understand a certain level and want the change as well. But it's people who, not too sure about it, don't understand about how these certain issues affect us in everyday life. So I think we need to work on a way that we could, I'm not saying force, but kind of put the vision and idea in front of people who, throughout the Caribbean, who just don't know about these things.
Okay. Agreed. Thank you for that.
Also adding to what Giovanna said, we could have it a bit more. Well, everything today was very interesting, and in every single thing Heroes has had was very interesting as well. But if for other things outside of Heroes, if we could have things that, even though it's a serious topic, we have it engaging and enlightening, so people that, because as Giovanna said, it have plenty of people who are in like things like Heroes, and they know about the topics, but there are people who they probably see things like Heroes and say, what people doing that for? That don't make no sense. The world gonna be how it is anyway. So we will have things that they could like look at and will be like, oh, well, what they're saying kind of makes sense, and that look kind of fun. So like, I want to join that too.
Okay. All right. No, thank you for those comments. And certainly, we're gonna put together like an action list to get some of these things moving in line with your comments. So it's not just talk, but it's actually putting it into action, which is something we like to see. So what I'd ask is, like, for the three of you all to put together that list, send it to us. Let's start thinking about a forum. I say forum, a coffee shop, or whatever kind of shop on a Friday or Monday or once a month. Let's see if we could put something together and have that start to share ideas. Sian, your points on engaging other folks with other ideas, that could come out of that as well, where you invite younger folks, different type folks, the elderly may have a view as well. Whilst you may say that they may have different views, but they may also have their own views that, based on experience and knowledge, that, they have a lot to bear. So the wider the cross section, or the greater diversity in that regard also helps it. So, there's no limits on what we can do within what you create. There are no boundaries in the content. Well, there are rules, but no boundaries in terms of who we invite, what we talk about, once it's within the certain, morals and values, and we're fine. So let's see if we could put together something like that, and Lawrence will support that with someone from his team, and I could be part of that, setting it up and make sure it's being done as well, to be heavily involved. Yeah. All right. Any closing comments before I close off this very interesting close-off session? Yeah. Any final parting words for today from each of you all?
Oh, go ahead.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I'll finish. I still need to put all my words together.
Okay. I would just like to say that it was very informative. I was glad I was a part of it. I hope that we could have more discussions like this in the future, more in depth, more actual actions to change rather than the information. Because I think we all, information is everywhere. If we read, watch certain things, we could learn for ourselves. And I think it's really the action that we need to take place. We need to figure out, step 1, 2, 3 of how we're going to do this. And then I really hope that everybody looks forward to the second day because there's a second day and there's a lot more that we need to hear and learn about.
Okay.
I am really grateful for this opportunity because I know a lot of people may have had stuff that they wanted, opinions that they wanted to be voiced, but they didn't know how to put it. So I'm grateful that I got to have this chance to speak even a little bit about stuff that I'm passionate about. And Future Forum really gave me the opportunity to see everyone's perspectives on it, as most of the time I'm also only looking at my perspective because I'm afraid of how it would seem to other people. But to see everyone's else perspective also lines up with and co-exist with mine in the same way is really refreshing to see that. So I really look forward to day 2, and I'm really thankful for this opportunity.
I'd also like to say thank you for this opportunity and thank you for everything that that you all taught us today. Everything, I learned some, as well as whoever else that are listening right now who learned. And I'd like to say that the information was well received, and as well as thank you for providing a space where I could speak a little, not just for myself, but for some of my friends and for people outside of Future Forum who wanted to say, well, this is what I think. This is what I think should happen in the world, and the world is not that good right now, and it should be better. And I just want to say thank you for everything, and tune in for tomorrow because it's gonna be cool too. So yeah.
All right. Just to close off, just to build on what you were saying, Lisa, the world is in transition, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because maybe the old one wasn't as good as it can be, and we have the beautiful opportunity to recreate and create something new, right? And that makes a big difference. And the world has gone through these transitions many times before, and I view this as a transition and a positive time to make these changes that are required and not necessarily go back to what we thought was good, but to create something better. I'd also like to thank the Heroes back office team led by Lawrence and that team. A lot of work went into this. Thank you to the IDB, who are our partners on this Future Forum. Again, a lot of people went behind this. This is all the staff who worked tirelessly to put this together. They put together this A-class panel. The technology platform is excellent. And hopefully this becomes sort of like the premier forum for youths and conferences, in the entire region. So we want to set that gold standard and really show people how it's done, because the power lies within that foundation as well. So thank you to the team, and thank you for everyone who's been on board today. And as Nisa said, look forward to tomorrow. Tomorrow will be just as exciting, probably more exciting, and more things to learn. And look forward to even more things as we take this forward. All right. Well, thank you everyone for your time, and please stay safe and take care of yourselves. All right. It is a pleasure. Lawrence? Lawrence, Mike, yeah, Mike.
Oh, thank you for that. It's been a day. But thank you so very much, Monty. Thank you very much, Giovanna, Nisa, Saya. I mean, you all did my job for me. So I don't need to wrap up. The end of the day, you all were phenomenal, really insightful, interesting discussions in this wrap up. We loved what we heard. We are so happy that we were able to provide that to you at Future Forum. I just want to again thank everybody who was a part of the forum today. Thank all of our speakers, our presenters, all of the ministers and professionals who took their time out of their day to be here. all of our Heroes Youth participants who sat on the panel. We have something really special coming up that we'll tell you all about really soon about these really extra special young people. Thank you for everybody for tuning in. I mean, the forum is about us, all of us, everyone, you, the person on this forum right now. It's about all of us. So please share your comments, share your questions in the chat. Like Monty said, we will be capturing everything associated with the forum, putting it together, and then sending it to the people who need to know about what the youth in Trinidad and Tobago have to say. You know, to our Heroes team and our volunteer team that helped put Future Forum together, thank you. Tomorrow we'll be touching on technology, agriculture, and arts and culture. So like Giovanna said, it's another packed, exciting, interesting day. So we hope to see you all tomorrow. Everyone have a fantastic evening. Stay safe. Follow the guidelines because we're still in a pandemic, but we're in it together. We'll get through it together. So have a fantastic evening, everyone, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Take care.
Thank you.